What's going on YouTube? Running Gun Sports back here with another video. Today is our New York Giants offseason review. Giants, a very interesting team last season, fell really just a game short of making the playoffs, and so we're here to talk about what went wrong exactly. And I think a lot of what went wrong for the New York Giants was unrecognized, and some people on that team, got away with, I think, partially the downfall of that team, and a lot of people don't realize it. And with that being said, if you have not already, please leave a like down below in this video and subscribe and share this video with your friends. And we're gonna get right into the video right now. And also follow our social media pages at rungun_sports on Instagram and at rungunsports on TikTok. So starting off, the Giants with a 6-10 record, only 2 out of 10 of their losses were to non-playoff teams, and they, as I mentioned earlier, they're really just an Eagles win away from being in the playoffs. And I think that the Eagles really kind of sold them out at the end of the season, and they were playing the Washington football team, and the Eagles easily could have had a chance to win that game if they had put Jalen Hurts in. Instead, they put in Nate Sudfeld out of all the people they could have put in, and they put him in, and obviously did not do well. And it was clearly that they were tanking, and it was just totally not a cool situation. And Doug Peterson was fired, and I think a lot of the reason of him being fired is because of that game. I think that you should really have more pride in your team, and I think that that was just honestly really embarrassing for why that team, the way they ended their season. And I wouldn't be happy if, me being a Seahawks fan, if Pete Carroll had done that, despite the draft picks and whatever. That was really the reason that he wanted the loss on the record so they could have a better draft pick. But I don't think that they really only had their draft pick only was affected by 3 picks. They would have picked with the 9th overall pick if they'd won the game, and they would have picked with the 6th overall if they had lost the game. And I guess they won the 6th overall pick, and I don't really excuse that at all. I just think it's really dumb, and just not the right way for the NFL. And just I just think that that's you should be trying your hardest every game, and if you're a professional athlete. And for Doug Peterson to do that, it was just very embarrassing for the team. But moving on, the Giants should have been in a position where they didn't have to rely on another team. The Giants nearly lost their chance in Week 17 versus the Cowboys. They barely held on to win versus the Cowboys in Week 17 to help them have a chance. They needed to win the game, and then they needed the Eagles to win the game. Obviously, the Eagles did not win the game, put the Washington football team in the playoffs. But starting out with Daniel Jones, a guy that I have no faith in at all as a starting quarterback in the NFL. Right now, I think he's the worst starting quarterback in the NFL, and his stats are not impressive at all. He did not play that good. He didn't have much college experience, and I just question these NFL owners for selecting these guys who do not have big college experiences, for drafting them, and then they turn out to be bust every time. And nothing about Daniel Jones excites me at all. And that might sound a little bit harsh, but it's 100% true is how I look at Daniel Jones. And I don't understand what the hype about him was coming out of college, and I think it's honestly makes no sense why he's a starting quarterback in the NFL and he should not be in that position. There's a lot of other guys who are better at the quarterback position. If Daniel Jones has a starting quarterback position in the NFL last season and Jalen Hurts does, that's just flat out wrong. Daniel Jones is not good, and I think that he's a complete waste of time, and the Giants shouldn't even be messing with him. And they should have drafted another quarterback this year, but obviously did not, because they think that Daniel Jones is the future, but clearly he's not, in my opinion. I just don't think that he'll do much. But as I mentioned, his stats not impressive at all. He did play 14 games, so 2 less than most people in the NFL. 2,943 yards passing, ranked 19th in the NFL. If the Giants are so adamant about Daniel Jones being a good quarterback, then I think that he's really got to get out of the 19th position in the NFL tile. And, I think that there's a lot of teams that if their quarterback is not in the top half of the league being 16th or above, they'll look for a new quarterback. And the Giants clearly don't know what the Giants front office is doing slash thinking, but I don't think Daniel Jones deserves a spot at the starting quarterback position. And 11 touchdowns in 14 games, not even a touchdown per game. He ranked tied 29th, which is also terrible, 3 away from being dead last in the league. And that's not good at all, not in the top half of the league. None of his stats are in the top half of the league. His QBR 61.5, 20th in the league, and his interception is 10 interceptions, and that tied his 18th in the NFL. So just not good stats at all for Daniel Jones, and those stats right there do not make any argument to me for Daniel Jones being a starting quarterback in the NFL and a franchise quarterback for the New York Giants. And when Daniel Jones in a few years from now has to have his contract negotiations and his agent, I think that they're going to want to stay away from the stats, especially if he plays like that in the next upcoming years, because those stats are nothing to really be excited about or anything like that. And if you look at the rankings, then it really does not look good for Daniel Jones. But being the leader of the offense really struggled last year, and I think that was the huge part. The defense was pretty good. They have a young defense, and I think that they can do very well next season. But I think that they're going to need a lot of help from their offense. The offense, while being outscored 271 to 374 by 103 points, that averages about 6.4 points per game, is how much they lose. So losing each game by at least a touchdown. And the New York Giants ranked ninth in average points allowed per game, which is very good in the top half of the league with some great defenses. And it kind of surprised me when I saw that, while ranking 31st in points per game at 17.5 points behind the New York Jets, who selected number 2 overall in the 2021 NFL Draft. And so you look at offenses, and obviously the leader of the offense is the quarterback, and Daniel Jones is the leader of the Giants offense, and he's the leader of a crappy offense. And there's no excuses for Daniel Jones. And if the New York Jets are the worst team in offensive points per game, then and they're looking for another quarterback, well, then I really think that the New York Jets should be doing the same thing, or New York Giants should be looking for a new quarterback as well, and immediately. And they wasted a draft year. They're going to do terrible this year with Daniel Jones, and that's about as good as I can put it. And I don't think it's Joe Judge's fault. I think it's the front office's fault. But at the same time, Joe Judge does need to he needs to put more faith into a different quarterback, and he needs to say something, because it is his call at the end of the day. And I think that him keeping Daniel Jones, and they will not be very successful at all. And I don't know what they're thinking and why they have him in there still. And really just looking at the stats, that the worst team, they picked up a new quarterback. And I think that, and the other thing is you look at the 30th team, the team in front of them was the Jacksonville Jaguars, who also selected a quarterback, and they didn't even have that great of a defense. And the Giants, 17.5 points per game. If you're an NFL defense and you give up 17.5 points per game, you're happy. 20 points is really the magic number. If you can give up 20 points per game, then anything below or at 20 points per game, that's a good game for an NFL defense. And giving up, or in a 17.5, it's most likely 2 touchdowns and a field goal, and you'll take that. And I think that that's very good for the other teams, but for the Giants, that is just horrific. and Jacksonville Jaguars, the other team in front of them, 19-4. And you kind of just look at a trend, and you see the 28th or the 29th team is the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, didn't have their quarterback, and they drafted a quarterback last season for that. And I think he'll do well when he comes around and is healthy. And then you look at Denver, who is another team who's 28th, 20.2 points per game. That's a lot better than 17.5 points per game. It may not seem like a lot, but it definitely is. And they're in trouble with their quarterback situation. So the Giants really, I think, should just consider maybe trading for a quarterback. Maybe that's what they didn't do, but they seem to be all in on Daniel Jones, and the reason I say that is because these guys that they've acquired in free agency have been weapons for Daniel Jones, and I don't think weapons for Daniel Jones is going to help at all. And you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Daniel Jones could have the best wide receiving core in the league and still I don't think do that well. And I think that it's just a waste of money, and they should invest all that money into getting a new quarterback. You look at the free agency this year. Kyle Rudolph, tight end, comes over from Minnesota, good pickup, and but still, obviously for Daniel Jones, John Ross, wide receiver from Cincinnati, another weapon for Daniel Jones. Ryan Anderson, defensive end from the Washington football team, coming over, very good player and going to be a good add to that young defense already. I think he'll fit in very well. And Reggie Ragland, linebacker from the Detroit Lions, a good also addition for that team, and he'll do very well on that team as well. College teammates Xavier McKinney's on that team, so I think that will help him out a lot, progressing with that team. Adoree Jackson, cornerback from the Titans, another good young defensive addition for that team. And then Kenny Galladay, wide receiver from the Detroit Lions, another weapon for Daniel Jones, obviously. So, you can tell that they are definitely all in on Daniel Jones, but I don't think that those wide receivers will help Daniel Jones at all become a better quarterback than what he is already. And they lose Wayne Gallman, a very solid running back for them last year when Saquon Barkley went out. And I think that Saquon Barkley coming back next year will definitely help Daniel Jones big time. But, I think that seeing Daniel Jones without Saquon Barkley really shows you how, a true test to how good or I guess bad he is. And I think that shows. And the Giants, choose to not make adjustments for that, then they're going to have a very bad season. And I think Saquon Barkley really should leave that team. Just he'll never do anything with the New York Giants, and as it's just that's as true as it is. And they will also lose Dalvin Tomlinson. That's a very solid defensive key to that team, but replaced him fairly well, I'd say. But at the draft, they also picked up Kadarius Toney, another weapon for the Daniel Jones, who I don't think that any of those guys will benefit from Daniel Jones. And picking up some good defensive picks, Aaron Robinson in the third round, cornerback from UCF, Ellerson Smith from Northern Iowa, linebacker, and Rodarius Williams, cornerback from Oklahoma State. So very good draft class, but I just think that the fault on the Giants team is on the offense and mainly on Daniel Jones. And he's the reason that that team is not a winning football team, and why they probably will not make the playoffs while he's on that team, unless a lot of things change and Saquon Barkley decides to go crazy. So that will wrap it up for today's video. If you guys have not already, please leave a like down below, subscribe, share this with your friends. Thank you guys so much for watching.